Welcome back, first graders. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I hope you're ready to dive back into learning all about reading. This week, we're going to start by looking at two old texts from the last 2 weeks. And then later this week, we're going to be reading a brand new text. So I'm really excited. It's another really fun, cool book. Before we get started today, I would love for you to go find your turn and talk partner. So remember, last week, I was using Cleo, the cuttlefish. The week before that, I was using Mr. Sock Monkey. Maybe you are using a stuffed animal, a pet, or a family member. Go ahead and grab your turn and talk partner now. Okay, great job. We are ready to get started. But I'm wondering if you can help me. I have Mr. Sock Monkey and Cleo, the cuttlefish. And I was looking at my two turn talk partners, and I was wondering, how are they the same and how are they different? I was comparing them. What would you say? How are these guys the same and how are they different? Go ahead and turn and tell your partner. So maybe you said, Mr. Sock Monkey is a monkey, and Cleo the cuttlefish is a cuttlefish. That makes them different. But maybe you said one way that they're the same. Well, they're both stuffed animals. They both live in my house, and they both are very soft. You might not know that, but I bet you could tell from looking at them. What you guys just did, looking at my two turn and talk partners, you were comparing and contrasting them. And that's our objective today. So actually, I'm going to say bye-bye to these two turn and tell partners. I'm going to put them away, go to bed, and introduce my new turn and tell partner for this week. This is Pinky the flamingo. Now, Pinky is going to help us talk more about this objective today. Let's read it together. I can compare and contrast two texts by thinking about how they are the same and how they are different. I would like you to read it with me this time if you didn't read it with me that time. Ready? Go ahead. I can compare and contrast two texts by thinking about how they are the same and how they are different. Okay, so we're going to dive into understanding what does that even mean? What does it mean to understand how they're the same and how they're different, to compare and to contrast? The way we do that is sometimes with a Venn diagram. So a Venn diagram is two big circles put together, and there's a space in the middle and two spaces on the sides. And what this allows us to do is to think about two things. It can be anything. It can be a turn and tell partner. It can be a toy. It can be a book. And you can think, how are they the same? And we would write that in the middle. And how are they different? And we would write that on the sides. And this is just a little way for us to organize our thinking. Now, why do we want to do this? Why do we want to use a Venn diagram? Why do we even want to think about how things are the same and how things are different? Well, it's because, readers, when you take time to think about your text and thinking about how they're the same and how they're different, you're actually making a connection. And if you are making connections, you already know connections help you understand the text even deeper, even better. And connections also help us enjoy reading more. It makes reading more fun. I love it when I see my students reading a new book with me, and then they say, oh, that reminds me of this other book I read. The other book had that too. That's great. You're making those connections. It's making you have an easier time to remember what you're reading. So, in order for you to do this lesson with me today, you're going to need to grab your notebook, and you're going to make your very own Venn diagram. So it's going to look like this. You're going to have your two circles that are overlapping in the middle. If you want to make your overlap in the middle bigger, you definitely can. And underneath your overlapping circles, one side, I would like for your left side to say an ocean of animals. And the right side, you can label it big blue whale, because those are the two texts that we'll be talking about today. I'm going to give you a minute to go grab your notebook or a piece of paper and go make this Venn diagram. Go ahead. Okay, hopefully you were able to create your very own Venn diagram, and now you're ready to work with me. So, we are going to start by thinking about the books. We read An Ocean of Animal 2 weeks ago. So we're just going to do a really quick picture walk to jog our memory and remember, what was this book about? What were some of the details in this text? I remember I had a table of contents. It was talking about how the ocean is full of life. It talked about the coastal zone. I saw a lot of photographs. It talked about the sunlight zone. It talked about the sunlight zone more like coral reefs and all the animals that live on there. It talked about manatees and the mammals that live in the sunlight zone. It even said here that giant blue whales swim in the open ocean. It talked about the twilight zone that's deep down and dark, the cool fish that live there. It talked about the dark zone that's even deeper where the tube worms live. And it talked about how there's still a lot we have left to learn about the ocean. There were some fun facts in the back too. And it also had a glossary and it had an index. Now let's review Big Blue Whale. We read this book last week, so let's see. It should be a little more fresh in our minds. So Big Blue Whale started. It had illustrations, lots of drawings, lots of facts inside of it. It was telling us about how the blue whale swims, how its teeth are actually bristles, they're baleen plates. It talked about how it eats krill, that really cool way how it scoops them all up. It talked about how in the winter it starts to travel because it can't eat krill there anymore. It talked about how they migrate from the North Pole, the South Pole to the equator. It talked about how they have babies. The mothers can have baby whales and how they take care of them. It talked about how they communicate with each other with their deep hums. And that was it. In the back, I do remember there was also an index too. Okay, so now that we've jogged our memories about both of these texts, we are going to start by thinking about how are they the same or how are they alike. When you think about how something is the same or alike, that means you're comparing it. So take a moment and think, how are these two texts alike? You could turn and tell your partner in a moment using this sentence stem. The texts are alike because, you try that. Great job. So I'm going to model for you using Pinky the flamingo. So Pinky, I think, the texts are alike because both texts mentioned blue whales. They both talked about blue whales. This one talked a lot about blue whales, and An Ocean of Animals did mention blue whales on one page. Okay, now you go ahead and tell your turn and talk partner. The texts are alike because, and you can write them down in your Venn diagram before you talk to your partner or after. Go ahead. Okay, how did you do? Maybe your partner also told you how the texts are alike or the same. I wonder if these are some of the things you wrote down and shared with your partner. Me and Pinky, we were talking while you were talking, and we decided the texts are alike because they're both non-fiction. They're both telling facts. They're both giving us information. They're teaching us things. Now, Pinky had also told me that the texts are alike because they both talk about ocean animals. Did you say that too? Awesome. Okay, you guys have done a great job. You've thought about how these texts are alike or how we can compare them. Now it is time to think about how they're different. We're going to contrast these two texts. So when I'm thinking, I'm contrasting my two texts, I can think about one book at a time. So we can start by thinking about An Ocean of Animals. How was this book different than Big Blue Whale? You can use this thinking and talking stem. The texts are different because... You try it. Okay, I'm going to model again. Pinky's going to tell me. Yes, Pinky, go ahead. Oh, you are correct. I would agree with you, Pinky. I do think that too. Pinky said, well, Miss Estevez, the texts are different because An Ocean of Animals has photographs. But Big Blue Whale doesn't have photographs. It has illustrations or drawings is another way we call that. Wow, so they're different because An Ocean of Animals has photographs taken with a camera, and Big Blue Whale has illustrations or drawings done by an artist. Great job, Pinky. That was awesome. Why don't you guys give it a try? Think, how is An Ocean of Animals different from Big Blue Whale? And don't forget, you can use this stem. You can tell your partner first and then write it, or vice versa. Go ahead. Okay, how did you do? Did it feel a little bit easier to talk about how the books were different? Typically, it's easier to notice that. It can be harder to notice how they're the same or how they're alike. So hopefully you've been filling out your chart, your own Venn diagram. And just like I'm writing just a few words at a time, you can do the same thing, just writing a few words instead of writing complete sentences in the Venn diagram. It makes it a lot easier. Okay, so me and Pinky were talking again, and Pinky and I were noticing a couple more things about how An Ocean of Animals and Big Blue Whale are different. I wonder if we have the same ideas. One thing that I had told Pinky was that An Ocean of Animals, it had many different animals in that book. It talked about starfish, it talked about whales, it talked about manatees, it talked about sharks, it talked about so many different animals, tube worms, really cool stuff. But Big Blue Whale didn't. So the texts are different because An Ocean of Animals talks about many different animals, while Big Blue Whale only talked about blue whales. Another thing that we had discussed and talked about was that the texts are different because in An Ocean of Animals, there's a table of contents. But in Big Blue Whale, there was no table of contents. So I can notice things about text, not just what the content is, what the words are telling me, but even the text features. It's really important that readers notice what text features books have and what text features other books might be missing. So these are a couple of different ideas about the way that these two texts are similar and different. How did you guys do? I'm sure your teachers would be really excited to see your Venn diagrams and to find out what you guys said and how many more details you could come up with. Now remember, when we started our lesson, we were comparing my two turn and talk partners. I would love for you to practice using a Venn diagram or just talking about how things are different or alike with anything you can. It can be with stuffed animals, it can be with books, it can be with things you see outside when you're taking a walk, maybe comparing trees or plants or flowers. So give it a try. It's really good practice for us in order to make those connections. Now, let's review our objective one more time and see how we did today. I can compare and contrast two texts by thinking about how they are the same and how they are different. How did we do with that today? I think you guys definitely compared them. You thought how they were the same, and you contrasted them. You thought about how they were different. Kiss your brains. Man, you first graders, you're getting smarter and smarter every day. Next time we meet, we'll be reading a brand new book that's a really cool book. So I'm excited to see you then. Until then, practice comparing and contrasting. Have fun talking about what you notice that's different and the same. And I will see you next time. Bye.